We're in Berlin at the third annual INSEAD Healthcare Alumni Summit, and our next guest is André-Michel Ballester. He is the CEO of Sorin Group. André-Michel, welcome to INSEAD Knowledge.
Pleasure.
Sorin specializes in cardiovascular devices, and it's a lead player in Europe and Asia. Not such a big player in U.S. What are your plans there?
Well, we have a great foothold in the U.S. in 2 out of 3 businesses. So if you look at the cardiopulmonary business, in which we're world leaders, we're also a leader in the U.S. in all 3 segments. So very strong presence there with manufacturing, research and development. If you look at the heart valve business, not to get into too many details, but we were only present in one segment of the valve business, the mechanical segment. We entered the tissue segment 4 years ago now, and we've captured in less than 4 years more than 10% of the market. So if you look at cardiac surgery, so cardiopulmonary and heart valves, we're doing great in the U.S. The place where we are struggling is cardiac rhythm management, so pacemakers and implantable defibrillators, where we have less than 1% of the U.S. market, whereas the U.S. market is 60% of the world market. So it's both for us a huge opportunity because of the size. It's a 5 billion euro market, but it's also a big challenge because we're facing U.S. companies with a well-entrenched position there. So we have a very focused strategy in the U.S. in the cardiac rhythm management business unit, and we're making good progress.
So how do you plan to step up your U.S. exports? You're going to go head-to-head with the competition? You're going to buy a company?
The U.S. is a very large market, and if you get lost in the U.S. in general and you try to cover all cities, you can't compete with these big guys. So what we've decided to do is really work on concentric circles. We have places in the U.S. where we have a significant share of the market, of the local market, and we build from this basis, basically, and we expand from there. So that's the winning strategy for us in the U.S.
You became CEO in 2007. 2 years later, you restructured the group. How's that going?
Well, actually, 2009 was kind of the end of the restructuring. We started the restructuring almost as I became CEO in late 2007. At that time, the company had a significant level of debt. We also were losing money. We had no growth. And basically, the management team and the new management team in particular decided that the company was spread too thin. We were trying to do too many things in too many different businesses, in too many different geographies. So basically, we decided to refocus the company around 3 core businesses in the cardiovascular space. We therefore divested in 2008 2 businesses that were not aligned with the rest of our franchises. We also worked on typical restructuring activities like cutting costs, expenses, and then we started to work on manufacturing costs. And it's really interesting that in the past, Sorin was a great company with great engineers, with lots of good ideas, but manufacturing was kind of an afterthought. And that gave us the opportunity to work very hard on reducing manufacturing costs. And over the last 4 years, we've been able to reduce manufacturing costs by more than 20%. So this is how we basically restored the financial strength of the company.
How have you been reducing manufacturing costs? Are you outsourcing or are you just doing it better?
Well, there are different ways to do that, but if you want to classify them into buckets, there is one bucket that is the design to cost. The manufacturing cost is heavily influenced in our industry, particularly in pacemakers or in oxygenators, by the design of the product, the kind of material you use, and also the way you design the product so that it's manufacturable. So we worked a lot with R&D, with manufacturing to make products that were easier to manufacture and cheaper to manufacture. So that was one thing. Second thing, we tried to change the culture of our manufacturing teams, our operation teams in general. We were lucky at that time that the automotive industry went into a deep crisis, so we could recruit some star talents in the automotive industry, and most of our operations leaders today at Sorin actually don't have a medical technology background, but they have an automotive industry, aerospace industry, electronics industry background. So these people come in with a very strong commitment to cost or to reducing cost embedded in their management style. So the cultural change in operations has driven lots of projects.
Part of this is almost your legacy because Sorin Group started as part of the Fiat Corporation. How did that all come about?
Well, it started at a time almost 50 years ago when Fiat was interested in diversification, and they looked at the technologies they had, and some technologies were applicable to medical devices, and that's how the medical device franchise started inside Fiat. Then Fiat, after some time, many years, realized that they were better off focusing on their core business, the automotive business, and therefore they first decided to spin off their chemical and medtech business altogether. And in 2004, this company that was a little bit of a hodgepodge of chemicals and medtech split again, and that's when Sorin started to be a publicly traded company in the Milan Stock Exchange.
You've been very focused so far on R&D and technology, but now you want to be more commercial.
We have a strong belief in Sorin that technology and innovation is the key to our future and to accelerating top-line growth for the company. While we were doing this restructuring of the company and cutting costs and bringing financial discipline within the company, the only line of the P&L we didn't really touch, and actually we grew, was research and development. At that time, in 2007, we're spending about 7% of our sales in R&D. This year, we're going to spend close to 10% of our sales in research and development. So it's a huge effort for us to bring new products to the market with innovative technology. So one thing is to invent, design, if possible, design so that it's manufacturable and cost-effective. The other thing is to market the technology. And that's where Sorin needs to still do progress. I mean, the whole medical device industry, to a certain extent, needs to also change the way it's marketing products to the healthcare systems. Technology was the only thing that mattered, and clinical results was really the key success factor for a new technology. Today, clinical results are still very important, but at the same time, you need to bring the health economics and the savings to the healthcare system, so that not only does the product save lives or improve lives of patients, but it also improves the cost of the healthcare system. So it's a tough challenge for us, but it's also one where I believe that our engineering background is helpful, because you need to structure data and you need to bring data to the healthcare authorities so that they see the benefits of using the product, not only from the, I would say, clinical standpoint, but also from the cost standpoint. So a challenge, but a very exciting challenge. You've
identified a niche for your products in the U.S. Where else?
Great question. We've spoken about technology and innovation. Now, when companies like Sorin thought about technology and innovation, they were thinking about the U.S. and Europe, and Japan to a certain extent a little later. Now the world is opening, obviously, and you have the whole opportunity of emerging countries. For medical technology, China is still an opportunity today. It's a big market for equipment companies, so the market in China is still very open. What it takes to be successful in China is not just great products or great distribution. It's going to take as well probably local manufacturing and local R&D to design products that fit the needs of the Chinese market.
Well, that's the new world. What about the old world, where you have providers and payers who seem to be running out of money?
Well, there is money in the system. The countries are spending a lot of money today, and they're spending a lot of money and the amount of money they're spending is increasing because the aging of the population, because as the population ages, new needs appear. 20 years ago, there were very few patients that had what is called heart failure today. And one of the reasons why lots of patients, nearly 15 million patients in Europe and the US alone, have what is called heart failure today is because they survived the heart attack, they survived a number of cardiovascular diseases, and now they are older and they are in need for care. So the developed market, US, Europe, Japan, is still a very exciting market for companies like ours for medical device technologies. The challenge with the payers is that we can't bring them just new technologies. We need to bring them solutions to help them control or reduce their healthcare costs. So the challenge for companies like ours is to look at the developed world or the old world as still a land of opportunity, but we need to capture these opportunities maybe in a different way than we captured them before. So it's not only about clinical results, it's also about economic results.
Let me end by asking you, as you sit back and look at the healthcare industry today, what trends do you see?
I don't know if it's a trend today, but I'm pretty sure it's going to become a trend over the long run. There'll probably be, in my view, a fusion or a convergence of the various components of the healthcare industries, drugs, devices, services, because again, the healthcare systems, particularly in Europe, US, are looking for solutions. So they are looking for partners that will bring them solutions to take care of patients that are aging, that cost them more and more, that are doing a lot of trips back and forth from home to the hospitals. So the trend that I believe I see emerging now, and we have, for instance, established a partnership with Orange Healthcare, France Telecom, so it's a telecom company. Why would they be interested in healthcare? Well, because they see that data management in healthcare is becoming a big issue, but also a big opportunity from a business perspective. So the trends I see and will see emerge, I believe, in the next 5 to 10 years is a trend where the healthcare systems are going to look for partners that provide them solutions for patients and that can take care of the patients within boundaries, obviously. Physicians are still going to do the medical act, but companies and industry can maybe be more efficient than the healthcare systems in managing the patient outside of the acute setting of the hospital.
André-Michel Ballester, thank you very much for being with us on INSEAD Knowledge.